What's up, guys? It's Joe with TNB. It's been a while, but today we return to a series we tried and left for a while. We talked about what made some things great, but I felt like I was nowhere close to giving it the credit it deserved. So today we're taking another swing at the series with the Assassin's Creed series. Assassin's Creed 2 is often referred to as the best of the series, so today we're going over what made it great, and of course, there will be spoilers. Also, this video will be broken up into a few different sections, so if you expect something to be mentioned, it might be talked about in another section. If you've been watching our channel for a bit, then you know one of our favorite series is Kingdom Hearts, but our next favorite is Assassin's Creed. Now this video is just to say what made the game great and why we love it. This game, just like any other form of entertainment, is not perfect, but we want to focus on the positives here. Now this video and gameplay will be taken from the Ezio Remaster Collection on PlayStation, but let's start with the one thing that sucked numerous people into this series, including myself. The cinematic trailer for this series is what hooked most of the people I know. The series is now known for them. This trailer is well over 10 years old and still looks amazing. Seeing the fireworks and then the camera pan to the Templars gives a nice shift in tone as well. The party is amazingly detailed and animated. The fireworks and the movement of the people dancing is phenomenally smooth. I love the camera spinning before Ezio gets his kill and then blurring afterwards. He hid in plain sight like a boss. The small fight and chase after is just great. I never expected to do everything in the trailer since it was a cinematic trailer, but it did an amazing job of showing off the world, our new ancestor, and our new targets. It showed great action and parkour, which has always been a staple of the series. Even though this trailer isn't my favorite of the series, it's still awesome and holds up as one awesome trailer for this game. Now, let's get into the next section. This game takes place during the Renaissance era in Italy. Now me personally, I know very little of this time. But Ash was backseat gaming and knew a good amount and filled in the things I wanted to know, whether it was fact or fiction. The world is designed in a way that you can traverse it and also feel the city or area you're in. The music also amplifies this in many ways. Jasper Kidd did a phenomenal job with this. The music fits perfectly in almost every way. This game also gives us the classic song and debatably some of the best in the franchise. Now back to the setting. You go to numerous places and each one is different in many ways. Some feel like slums while others feel like they're very upscale. My favorite example of this is actually the way your base of operations changes throughout the game. The Pasta Town. It starts off small and kind of unpopulated, but the more you invest in it, the more the town grows and changes into this bustling establishment. You also have this other city that the area outside is basically flooded and dull, and even inside looks different. You also have the assassin's tombs that are actually as detailed as they are intricate, but we're going to go into those a little bit more in depth in a bit. The design of all these characters are fantastic. Every character, even the NPCs, feel like they belong in this setting. All supporting characters have a unique appearance that helps this world. Every character has a look that makes them distinct, but not crazy enough to make them stand out too much in the game. Then you have the main character, Ezio. Is just amazing and actually still one of my favorite designs. His cape keeps his weapon hidden and discreet. It hides one of his hidden blades and somewhat his sword. He has his hood with the point on the tip, and when you look at the design you see small details that are just simply amazing. There are hidden assassin emblems all over it. This game also made a classic for a lot of fans. White and red are the main colors for assassin's clothes after this game. They also have a few different looks for him throughout the game, and I always loved when they do that. Not to mention all the armor and possible upgrades you have for him. This game gives us plenty of characters, and almost all of them are awesome. We're going to talk about Ezio in the story section since his character and the story flow together so well you can't really talk one without the other. Let's talk about Claudia now, Ezio's sister. She also grows pretty well. She starts the game as someone who has everything handed to her and has to learn to work and earn what she has and wants, since Mario basically forces her to learn this lesson. The rest of Ezio's family are really cool, and I think my favorite are probably his brother or his father, but they don't get too much screen time since they're busy kinda hanging out outside the story. Claudia is one we interact with the most since we have to talk to her to look at the book on the town. Mario is their uncle and also an assassin. One small complaint I will throw in here is I wish we saw a bit more of his emotion since his brother did get murdered, but his character is so cool you kinda forgive that one thing. He really becomes Ezio's father figure once they move to his villa. He teaches him how to fight, but I love how he teaches Ezio to respect the dead. He yells at him when he kills one of the most deserving people in the game. The Vieri were responsible for Giovanni and his sons dying, and were bragging about killing Mario as well. Yet Mario still gave them respect and demanded that Ezio do the same, a lesson that always stuck with Ezio.
You are not Vieri. Do not become him. Che la morte ti dia le pace che cercavi. Requiesca in pace.
Leonardo da Vinci is one of Ezio's closest friends, and that relationship starts and grows very naturally. I like that they have Leonardo's curious and inventive side in this game, and not just his art. Seeing him help Ezio was a blast. He always had the excitement of a child trying to figure out the next codex page. The game actually makes his art secondary to the story, which makes sense because a famous painter isn't going to be very helpful. I also love that he never becomes an assassin. He just stays an ally. But he knows and interacts with so many. Rodrigo is the main villain, and his main motivation is just being power hungry, but the way he goes about it is better than most, and I really like him as a villain. He believes in one thing. At the end, while fighting him, he tells you he doesn't believe in the Bible. The Pope, who you are fist fighting, doesn't believe in the Bible at all.
You reckon my man?
You are the Pope, and yet you dismiss the central text of your faith?
Are you so naive? I became Pope because it gave me access. It gave me power.
For the modern day characters, Desmond is the main one. It's cool that he wants to get even with Abstergo for kidnapping him and all that fun stuff, but I really like that he's willing to have the bleeding effect take over him even more, just so he can take on the Templars. Lucy is just a badass, not much else to say. She knows most of what's going on, and she knows how Abstergo works from being undercover for over 7 years. Becca is the computer whiz, making sure Desmond is fine and assisting him when she can. She's also one of my favorites in this modern day. Sean is just a dick, not much else to say. Next section. The story is amazing and one of the best in the series. Among the community, Ezio and this game are almost everyone's favorites. The story also shows a lot instead of telling us. There are plenty of things that I didn't catch as a kid when I first played this, but playing it again for this video, I noticed some things, like, was Ezio a stillborn? The doctors gave that impression. Or another example is, what exactly did the guards do to Ezio's mother? Her shock and silence implies a lot. But we on the team here aren't sure because if Ezio beat up a guy for cheating on his sister, if people did something crazy to his mom, there would be a lot less stealth in this game. But anyways, this game also handles the modern day very well. Now, I know I'm in the minority here because I really enjoy modern day, and actually kind of like Desmond. Almost all the modern day characters are cool, except Sean. He's a dick. There's a lot of fun stuff here, like the fact that they mostly went to Ezio so Desmond could pick up his skills quickly through the bleeding effect. I found it interesting that they were willing to do it directly after Subject 16. It felt very questionable at the least. And for me, it added more of the morally gray area where the assassins are in. The assassins are losing the war against the Templars and trying to win even though there are a few teams left. Sean, while being a dick, brings out a good point when Desmond tries to claim they're the good guys. He reminds them, at the end of the day, they are assassins and murderers. One of my favorite parts of the modern day is actually the ending. Every single time the credits roll, I'm content. But then the gameplay resumes shortly after the credits begin and makes the game even cooler. Having to fight your way to safety just for Vidic to get away gave the player wanting more. At least it did for me. Let's move on to the Animus and go talk about Ezio's story. Ezio is born into a good life and his intro to his side is awesome. We see the stupid brat yeet a rock at Ezio's face that gives him a permanent scar like Desmond has. When you climb to the first viewpoint with Federico, this scene always gives me goosebumps. And while writing this script, I realized that it's pretty similar to Lion King seeing Mufasa showing Simba the kingdom. You see this beautiful area and you feel at peace, but knowing something is coming. And then Ezio plays Hide the Baguette and begins his man whore title. For most kids playing this, it was basically porn, and usually the only scene a parent will walk in to see what you're playing. The beginning does a fantastic job of introducing you to his family and caring about everyone, except for this kid. Screw him and his feathers. Giovanni is a great father. Maria's a loving but can be savage.
You should find an outlet.
I have plenty of outlets.
I meant besides vaginas.
See, Ezio and his siblings are loving towards each other. I loved when his family gets arrested, there's a small moment of hope, getting Uberto to help you. That hope drops almost as fast as the bodies the next day. This craziness gets us frustrated and feels betrayed like Ezio and his family feel. This story made us feel everything Ezio felt, whether we agreed with it or not. But more importantly, we got to see him grow. There are two pretty good examples of this. The first is more minor, while the second is more obvious. The first example is Ezio's view of the world and of the people. You help Giovanni by taking letters to people, and one of the letters goes to a thief and a courtesan, a prostitute. You see Ezio do it, but with some judgment, and the thief even makes a joke out of the kid's uncomfortability. As the game goes on, These types of people not only come around more often, they become some of the people Ezio trusts most. The second example is how Ezio handles murder. The first assassination, he's bloodthirsty and stabs him publicly with no discretion. Then later, while killing someone, he begins cursing at them, and everyone's favorite Italian has to stop him. He teaches them to respect the dead. I love how this continues, especially towards the end. As the years continue, he has no problem admitting he was immature and brash. And as he kills people, you can see he has more remorse and almost regret, but he knows what he has to do. This is even more clear in the end when you take on Rodrigo. Ezio regresses to the brash child when he almost kills him, but after the fist fight, Ezio lets him live. I'll admit, I'm with the majority of the fan base here when they say Ezio should have killed him there. But that was younger Ezio. This is more mature Ezio. He knew killing him wouldn't bring his family back, and I don't doubt Ezio hoped Rodrigo would stop after Ezio spared him. Ezio's a caring person. We see the way he treats children and how he tries to protect women in general too, even if the little manho does try to bang them soon after. The story is also paced pretty well. Ezio does not start out as an assassin. He works his way up and learns before joining in the second half of the game. The game also has you uncover new secrets and abilities enough to keep you going throughout the entire game. When the game felt like it might be dragging on, you go to the Vatican and fight the Pope and finish up the game. The final part of the story section is the cutscenes. I remembered some cutscenes from when I first played this game over 10 years ago, and honestly, the cutscenes still hold up. There's enough to be a good balance of cutscene and gameplay. The way it was directed was awesome. This game has numerous scenes that are still my favorite of the series. Some of my favorites are the title drops and the scene where Ezio loses most of his family. And of course, the best scene ever.
It's a me, Mario!
This game adds a lot of lore, and all in great ways. We get the Apple and Staff of Eden and see some of their abilities. We get the Adam and Eve short when you decode everything from Subject 16. You have the codex pages as you go through the game, and you also get Juno sending a message to Desmond. Every Assassin's Creed game, ignoring you, is known for having hidden blades, and this game is the first one to give you 2 of them. I love when sequels give you 2 of an awesome weapon, whether it's hidden blades or key blades. Double assassinations are so satisfying, but you don't just get the hidden blades. Assassin's Creed 2 has a great range of weapons, light and heavy, sword and hammers, or stealing enemies. One major props I give to this game is still having a variety of kill animations, and some are pretty crazy, like this one. I mostly use the hidden blades, of course, but I also loved using throwing knives, even though the controls for them were sometimes frustrating. I tried to be as stealthy as possible, but stealth is not my strong suit, so my sword was always on hand for when I would get attacked. Weapons come at a great rate, but I do wish there was more, only because I basically maxed out a little over halfway through the game. You also get a good amount of armor too. I love and kinda hate that you can get the best armor a little over halfway through the game. After a certain point, I didn't really go to merchants other than to stock up on supplies. One thing I did really like though were the dyes. There were so many options that everyone will have a favorite, and for being over 10 years old, the customization still holds up in my opinion, even though my favorite is the default colors. Assassin's Creed 2, you're basically just checking people off your hit list. But because of mission variety, it doesn't feel like a slog. It is rare that a mission is the same as another, and every mission has numerous ways to address it, even if you are restricted in how to do it sometimes. At one moment, you assassinate 2 targets in the same mission. Even the tailing missions can be fun in this one too. I personally love just standing on a rooftop looking over my enemies. Or if I have to be on the ground, then you get a group of hookers or thieves. The enemies often say some cool or important things during this time too, so you actually feel like you're doing a detective work. Best example of the mission variety is near the end, when you have to eliminate 9 targets. At first, I was incredibly annoyed. There were 9 more people. But after doing the missions, they were some of my favorites because of the variety or restrictions. Some also sucked, like these 2. But the rest were a fun challenge, especially if I had to blend in or find a stealthy way to do it. The gameplay still holds up and is somewhat better than some of the new games. Social blending was always fun. The fighting was a blast, even though you could potentially wait for them to hit you and then just counter, which I did do a few times, but still had fun because it was hilarious and the variety of animations made this all the more satisfying. The parkour is awesome, and when you get into motion, it was pretty smooth. The game is a blast just for the parkour alone. The only thing that would have made this game better would have been a crouch button. The notoriety system was fun, and the fact that they gave numerous ways to reduce it was awesome. You can see it was in its early stages since it doesn't always make sense, but it doesn't mess up enough for it to be frustrating. There are a lot of side things you can do if you want in this game. You have the Assassin and Templar vaults, you have races, fights, Assassin's contracts, and of course collectibles. I love collecting the viewpoints because no matter which game in the franchise it is, it never gets old watching the camera pan around your playground. The Assassin vaults are how you get Altair's armor, and those are fun parkour puzzles that were way more intricate than I expected. Each one is very different from the last and has its own style. All of the other side stuff are fun and can be good for money, but I never really did any of them because I focused on the villa early on, so I almost always had more money than I needed. The feathers are kind of a pain, but I like that you get a reward for 50 and another for getting them all. For 50 you get a weapon, but 100 you get the Auditore cape, which fills and doesn't drop your notoriety as long as you wear it. Every single side mission type is introduced in an almost flawless way that made me do more than I would normally do. The world in general is amazing. While there are some small things that were copied, they were tactful enough that it wasn't a big deal. They also have a bunch of little details that I love. For example, birds are used to signify that you can jump off an edge and there will be hay underneath you. But if you get too close, they all fly away. Or what about the way the horse's hooves make different noises depending on where it's running? No matter what town you visit, there are always people doing things in a way that makes the world feel lived in. They can also be major obstacles as well if you're running and knock into them and fall over. Or God forbid you bump into someone who's walking with a crate. If people see you climbing, they'll even make comments about you as well. That's another small thing they added that's just great. They made the world as the time and location, but also as a playground where you can climb almost anything by the end of the game. All these things make this world a blast. Assassin's Creed 2 was a great game when it was released in 2009 and still is a great game. The characters, world, and story make it a blast every time you come back. There's so much to talk about when it comes to this game, so if you missed something you like, let us know in the comments. Also, let us know your favorite game in the series. If you enjoyed the video, consider liking and subscribing. We'll be visiting Ezio again soon in another What Made It Great. But for now, stay nerdy and keep binging.